On a chilly Sunday morning, January 13, 1991, three cavers embarked on an expedition that would forever change their lives. Jack Thompson, an experienced caver with a decade under his belt, led Emily Parker and Mike Sullivan to explore the infamous Megawell Cave in Jackson County, Alabama. Their goal was ambitious yet seemingly achievable: descend the treacherous 310-foot pit, investigate the cavern below, and return safely to the surface. Little did they know that this day would end in tragedy. Recent rainfall had left the cave wet and dangerous. As they entered, water droplets pelted their faces, a grim reminder of the challenging conditions ahead. Jack, ever the optimist, reassured his companions, "It will be tough, but we can handle it." He unpacked a 600-foot rope he had recently acquired from Polish cavers during a trip to Mexico. The sellers had assured him of its quality, claiming it could withstand up to 4,500 pounds of force. However, this European design differed significantly from the American static ropes they typically used, a detail that would prove crucial later. Rigging the rope posed an immediate challenge. To avoid the heaviest water spray, they had to set it up with a straight pull on the bolts, a less secure method than the usual right-angle loading. Jack, weighing the risks, decided it would suffice. The rope descended at a 44-degree angle for 21 feet before reaching the pit's edge. However, 20 feet down, it pressed against a sharp, projecting ledge. This spot showed deep grooves from previous use, a clear warning sign that went unheeded. Jack took the lead, carefully navigating the slope and checking the rigging. His voice echoed up from the darkness. "All clear, come on down." Emily descended slowly, her movements cautious in the unfamiliar territory. Finally, it was Mike's turn. At 240 pounds, Mike's weight approached 260 with his wet clothes and gear. He moved with deliberate care, eyeing the rope at every step of his descent. By 2 p.m., all three had reached the bottom. The cavern was massive, its walls slick with water. A roaring stream echoed around them, making conversation difficult. They explored for 45 minutes, marveling at the hidden formations, but the constant chill seeped into their bones. Jack, sensing the growing discomfort, decided it was time to head back. The ascent began with Jack leading the way, testing the rope as he climbed. The journey up was grueling, but he made it safely. Emily followed, her movements slowed by fatigue and cold. When she reached the surface, she was shivering uncontrollably. Jack helped her out and suggested she warm up in the car. He returned to check on Mike, who had just started his ascent. As Jack waited at the pit's top, the stream's roar filled the cavern. He called down periodically, but the water made it hard to hear any response. After about 20 minutes, concern crept in. He called out louder, but silence answered. Unease growing, Jack tugged the rope, expecting to feel Mike's weight. Instead, it was slack. His heart racing, he pulled it up hand over hand. After about 40 feet, the rope's end came into view severed. For a moment, Jack couldn't move, his mind struggling to process the sight. The lifeline connecting Mike to safety was gone. Somewhere in the darkness of the 310-foot drop, Mike had fallen. Panic surged through Jack as he shouted into the pit, his voice echoing off the walls. No response came. Leaning over the edge, he strained to see into the blackness below, but the water spray obscured everything. Jack scrambled out of the cave and ran to Emily, breaking the devastating news. They quickly sought help, flagging down a passing motorist to call for rescue. Racing to a nearby supply point, they gathered 2 ropes, a sleeping bag, and Jack's rain suit. As they sped back to the cave, Emily's voice trembled. "What if he's still alive down there? What if he's waiting for us?" Jack couldn't answer. He knew they were running against the clock. Back at the cave, Jack told Emily to wait for rescuers while he re-entered the dark, cold cavern. At the pit's edge, he worked quickly to rig the new rope, his hands trembling but guided by years of experience. The roar of the active stream was deafening as Jack began his descent. The air grew colder and damper as he lowered himself into the abyss. When he reached the bottom, the grim reality awaited him. Mike lay motionless, his body twisted unnaturally. His helmet was shattered, and there was no sign of life. Jack's stomach churned, but he forced himself to approach. He checked for a pulse, knowing what he would not find. Mike was gone. A mix of grief and guilt weighed heavily on Jack as he stared at his friend's body. He felt like he had failed Mike, that this was somehow his fault. The silence in the chamber felt suffocating, broken only by the relentless drip of water from above. Jack wrapped Mike's body in the sleeping bag, securing it as best he could. The task felt surreal, like moving through a nightmare. But there was no time to dwell on emotions. He had to inform the others. The climb back up was arduous. Jack's body was weary, and his mind raced with every possible scenario. What if this rope failed too? What if he slipped? The spray from the stream pelted him relentlessly, making the rope slick and the climb even harder. As he ascended, the sharp ledge where the original rope had failed came into view. The sight sent a fresh wave of fear through him. The groove in the rock was deep, worn smooth from years of use. Faint fibers of the broken rope still clung to the edge. At the surface, the first rescuers were arriving. Jack briefed them, his voice trembling as he recounted the tragedy. The recovery operation lasted through the night, with rescuers enlarging narrow passages to fit the stretcher carrying Mike's body. It was a slow, grueling process. At one point, a bolt on the hull system failed, sending a shock load through the rigging. The strain damaged their ropes and carabiners, forcing them to retire the equipment. Sharp rocks tore into the sked stretcher as they dragged it to the surface. By 7 a.m. the next day, they finally brought Mike's body out. Everyone was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The aftermath raised serious questions. The rope was sent for analysis, revealing it was a European style with a thinner sheath and twisted core. While rated for 2,770 pounds, it was not as durable as typical American static ropes. Tests showed the rope had been under significant stress before failing. Mike's climbing technique, using a frog system that creates a bouncing effect, likely contributed to the problem. These loads could have reached 500 to 800 pounds. The critical failure point was the sharp ledge 20 feet down from the pit's edge. The rope had pressed against this ledge under tension, and the repeated stretching and abrasion weakened it further. It is possible a falling rock struck the rope at this point, cutting through the weakened strands. The final analysis concluded that a combination of factors led to the tragedy: the weaker rope, the sharp ledge, and the bouncing loads. This incident highlights how quickly things can go wrong in caving. Mixing equipment styles, using questionable gear, and underestimating risks can have deadly consequences. Mike Sullivan paid the ultimate price for what seemed like a manageable trip, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the depths of the earth. The caving community mourned his loss, and the incident sparked discussions about safety protocols and equipment standards. Jack and Emily, forever changed by the experience, vowed to honor Mike's memory by promoting cave safety and education. The echoes of that fateful day in Megawell Cave continue to resonate, a somber reminder of the respect and caution the underground world demands from those who dare to explore its depths.